This is Short Hammer. It is the 12th of June, 2022, and this is Trading Zones. It may get a little choppy for this video. Sort of got the kids all alone for the weekend, so it's a little bit fascinating. So let's get into it either way. So looking at the RTY, and what we see that we had a nice bit of selling last week, didn't get good news, CPI and other information wasn't great. So we did get a nice little pullback. But what we're looking at here is if we look to the left, right, this is the RTY, and we're looking at the 4-hour chart. If we look back to, let's see, how's this, even a little bit further back, if we look back to, this is the 10th of May. So we dropped down into this area on the 9th of May. We tried to pull back up to get through on the 10th of May. And the top of this line here is 1797, right? So 1790s. And we couldn't get through, pull back through. And we sort of hammered around in this area, 1797 to 1747. I think that's about 50 points. And look, you see these wicks. And even though we broke above on the 17th of May, we retraced back inside that area and kind of bounced around, spent the majority of the time within that zone. Come on, big guy. So what are we saying? Well, what we're saying is, even though we broke above and made some noise up here in the 1800s, we pulled right back down and tested the top of this zone, the 1790s. And we know supply becomes demand, demand becomes supply. We drop right into this area. And so what we want to see is, will the buyers buy us out of there? We had the thing that should have happened was the first test should have been a bounce, right? We see that. And now we want to see if we retrace within this area here and bounce around a bit. With the CPI being 8.6% and it being the highest number in what, 30 or 40 years, the Fed's going to have to do something. The government, they're going to have to do something, right? We don't know what they're going to do. But what we can say is no one alive has ever been through a situation like this, where the world is so connected, like globally, supply chains, just we're so globally connected, or interconnected, I should say. And we're having these challenges with oil and relationships with different countries. We're having what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. That war is, there's just so many different challenges right now. And then we're having also a challenge when it comes to climate change, right? And whatever that looks like, or whatever that may mean to you, the world is warming up a little bit, right? There are challenges. And so all these things are happening, and the Fed is trying to find ways to mitigate that. And not going to get into anything around that, like because it's not my area of expertise, but it's just a very difficult situation to unwind. And I feel that each president for maybe the last 30 or 40 years has been kicking the can down the road to the next president. There's just so many challenges, right? That just the way that things are done with printing money, when we disconnected from the gold standard, it's not my area, but there's just so many challenges. And just the managing of debt and what that means for our country. I think this is just a challenging time. And so what we want to keep an eye on, because the RTY is made up of what? Financials, small cap. There's some other things in there also, but financials and small cap. And I do think financials should see something based on what, based on that CPI being so high. There should be some sort of reaction as far as what the Fed does, and that should impact financials in a way, right? So all that is very, very interesting. Oh, 1 second. The baby guy has gotten through the barrier. That was exciting. So, so what we want to watch is if we get back inside this zone and begin to bounce around, then we know that the potential is for us to maybe drift near the bottom around the 1740s. and then back near the top around the 1790s. If we were to drop below this, then that would be interesting also. But we want to see how this shakes out, and not talking about wicks, but where do we close, and do we spend time bouncing around in this area for a while? That could be interesting. Getting on over to the MES. All righty. And you kind of don't see the same thing if you look back, kind of here, but not really, right? And so we're down here around the 3900s. So what do we want to see? 3888 is the next level down. Below that, watch the 3856, then the 3817s. It would be beautiful if the buyer stepped in and gave us like a retrace back up into this 4075 area. This was so easy because you saw how we just bounced around in that area roughly for all these different sessions. And now we separated, and there could have been an expectation that there'd have been a reaction here. But let's look back, right? And we see back on the 18th of May, look at this sell and the next corresponding drop, right? Down to the 3930s, right around here. Then we had a corresponding drop here down to the 3909, and then another drop here down to the 3895. And then we pulled up, dropped down here, right around the 3859, and then we began the attempts to retrace. Another drop again. So we can see how this kind of looks a little bit. If you look at the levels where we saw a bounce, right? And not a bounce meaning a reversal, but a bounce meaning there was either short coverings or reaction from the buyers jumping in here and look at the little bit of a bounce. You saw that here and down to the next level. So what we want to keep an eye on, 3930s is interesting. And up here around the 4015 area is also interesting. 4015s through the 4020s. So at the this level here, the 3930s, we want to see what happens. And we already saw a retest here into 3930s and a rejection. We want to see what happens next week. Do we pull back into that area? And do the buyers push us above, right? And if not, are we going to drift down here to the 3850s or down to the 3817s? So that's an interesting thing to watch on the MES, in my opinion. Let's keep it moving. Jet through this. So taking a peek at the MNNQ. So we saw that we were bouncing around here in this little box, top of this box being 12,819-ish, 12,820-ish, and the bottom being 12,484, right? And what we were saying was on these pullbacks, we needed to really get back into those 12,500s, which we did every time, right? And pushed up again, back, 12,500s, back into 12,500s. And here we cracked, right? But we did hit this hitch here, the 12,290s. See it here and here, right? See little areas right all through here where we saw little hitches here. And then we saw a continuation down to the next level. We didn't get a hitch at the 11,980s. But that's a-okay. But what it did do is took us down to this area here, which technically I could drag this over a little further. Do I want to? Let's see what that does if we drag this a little bit more this way. And we look at this zone still, right? Let's see what we get. So it's like down in this area, we saw a bounce at the 11,710s, and then a pullback to the 1230s, right? And this is the area we want to watch. 1203. And back, he's tossing some Paw Patrol toys around. Somebody may need a little bit of a nap. It's okay. And so what we want to see is, as we're down in this little zone here, 11.7, 7.10-ish, 7.20-ish by 12.0, 30-ish / 40-ish. Right in this area through 12.50s, right? Watch this area. Let's see if we get to the 11.7 hundreds, roughly about 7.10, 7.20s. And if we get a bounce, buy or step in, that'll be interesting, right? But we watch for the reaction first. Watch for the increase in volume first and see what happens. And then see if we could buy back up into the 12.040s. That will be interesting. It would be great to get a relief bounce, but we may have a little bit more selling left. And I think at some point, right, we have to get back up here and retest the 12.500 area in some capacity. We'd have to get through this 12.300s first, but I'll be waiting on that. And so what we want to see, to me, what would be beautiful is we had kind of for this type of setup, right, where we drop right here into 11.700s, roughly around the 7.10, 7.20s, 7.30s, anything in that area. Buyer stepped in and pushed us right back up. Then we came back down and kind of spent some time consolidating. And then we can either break the bottom or sell through the top. That'd be a great setup to have here. We'll see how that plays out, but we don't know. We have to see. Headed straight over to Apple. And where's Apple? If you look to the left, this 137.20-ish area, we see we had all these bounces, and this was from the 19th of May through the 26th of May. We spent some time just bouncing around in this box between 137 and 142. And once we broke that, and then we were kind of stuck between the 142 and the 149. So what we want to see here, I would think, is even if we drift a little bit, we want the buyers to step in and give us a rise back to the 142. I think that would be interesting if we spent some time bouncing around in this area. I do believe they said that there was a rise in purchasing of iPhones and accessories in China, but we don't know. I believe that in the China market, they just released some of their COVID restrictions, but then you see other stories saying that they're having massive rises in COVID infections. So we have to see how that plays out. If things are open today, will they be closed tomorrow? One thing I do think, though, is as far as in the US, I don't think that regardless of what goes on with COVID, that we're going to have any politicians be in a hurry to shut anything down headed into the November elections. So we have to see. Let me one moment. What is going on? Oh, he can't reach a toy. You okay? You okay, big guy? So the big kids are upstairs trampolining off the couch. I don't know what game they're playing. And the little one is down here tossing Paw Patrol and little Einstein toys all over the basement. It's very interesting. So that's awesome. Yeah, I'm watching everyone on these. Okay, this is hilarious. So let's keep it going. So what we want to see is, does this hold? Does it bounce? That's what's interesting, right? And so we'll see what happens here. But remember, as interest rates raise for any company that's usually tech or growth, they do feel the pressure because the cost to refinance debt and also to get new debt is more expensive. So that's all interesting. So let's see, looking at Microsoft. So we're down here right around the 251.90s. And so we see reversals here. Bounces out of the 251s. So if we look at this drop down here, let's see. So it would be good to see some buying here. I'm not looking at the higher time frame. Let's see. This is interesting. So this is look at how we're just bouncing around here. Now we're down here. So what would be good to see is that if we did see some buying, we have to see. So this is what I'll be looking for, right? So it looks like going back, and this is not going way back, but just going back to the 12th of May, about kind of like a month. If we look back, each time that we on the 4-hour chart went below the 251 area, buyers stepped in, right? And what do we see? These lower wicks, right? So what are we looking for here? If this changes here and we close and we sell below this and we continue to sell and we don't see like this strong reversal on the 4-hour chart, it could be a change in pattern, and that would be something to watch, right? To say, hey, have the sellers taken over? Now, are they taking us down a level? Now, an interesting thing to do, I would think, would be to flip this to the daily chart and see what has happened in the past at these levels. So it looks like we have the 249 40s or 249 40s 249s. Then below that we have 244s, 244 60s, it looks like. Then below that 242 80s. Let's see. So that's interesting on Microsoft. That's definitely something that we should be watching. And something else to keep an eye on is I think they did guide down saying that their next earnings would be more challenging than they thought. So that's something to watch in Microsoft also, that regardless of what their last earnings were, I believe they did change their guidance for the next earnings, and they guided that it would be less than expected. So we'll see how that plays out for Microsoft. Keep it moving over to NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, we want to see what happens in this tiny little box here. And if we're looking at this nice little pop purple, pivot in there, kind of bouncing around in this little box, 181 by 158-ish. And this is from the beginning earlier in May. That's funny that we spent that much time. We bounced above. And you see, we tried to get use this as a springboard, just couldn't do it. Now we're back inside. Is it possible that we retrace to the bottom of this? That's something to watch, as I'm also watching the baby. He's watching me. I'm watching you, buddy. Come on over. He said it back this way. So we'll see how this works out if we retrace to the bottom. But we can see there that from the 157s through the 181s is a zone in the area to watch to see if we can get out of. That is really interesting. If we do get below this area, this is on a daily chart, right? If we do get below this area, then we want to keep an eye on the 138. So we want to watch these zones, and we want to see what happens if we get lower. Hey, buddy, you need some water? You want some daddy attention? You're gonna get it in one moment. Let me keep it moving. I'm not sure how long he'll be patient. That's NVIDIA. Let's take a peek at look at Meta. I don't really have much on here. Let me move this back to a 4-hour chart. Oh, no, let's not do what just happened there. We're not logging in on here. At least not right now. Let's go here. Drag this up. So our next line is at 173.11, then 161, then 150. I have no idea where Meta is going. I do like where Meta is going long term, but right now there's just a lot of pressure on a lot of these stocks. And so if we were to bounce and retrace back into the 179s or even the 185s, I wouldn't be surprised. We just have to see what next week brings and sort of what people are talking about. It's going to be interesting to see. But let's see. Let's keep it moving. Let's see. What am I missing? I think Intel was interesting, but I don't know if there's anything truly. Intel's falling. Watch 3820s. Then below that, don't have anything falling below that. So that's interesting on Intel. That is falling this far. A lot of people are just, waiting for level where they feel that it's comfortable to get in and to pick some things up. I'm not sure where those levels are, to be honest. You just have to wait for things to reverse. And the reason why I say that is because real estate hasn't really dipped at all yet. I'm not sure how far it would dip, right? But it has to do some sort of dip a little bit. So remember, we were rejecting at the 784s. We got back down to our 713 line. We're now below that. Last time we did seem to buy back up out of this area, so we have to see what happens going into next week. But the potential is a drift down to the 650s and maybe even the 616s. Below that, if we tighten this up, then we get to the SOFI levels, the 580s, 570s, and 560s. And if you look back on Tesla, I know I saw something about them potentially doing a 3-to-1 split, which would be interesting. But if you look back on Tesla, when we've dipped down into these 580s on different occasions, there's been every pushback into that area since we've broken it, there have been a strong reaction to the upside, right? Like a push all the way up into the 700s, right, on each, and then all these highs each time. So that's really interesting. Even on this dip, even though it's not quite to the fives, even into the low sixes, the buyers did step in, right? And not just in Tesla, but overall. So what we want to watch for is, do we go lower in Tesla? And do we get above the 713s? And are we bullish above? And do we push up into some of these pivots? So do we drop down here into the 690s, potentially drift down to the 649 area? And do we see some sort of buying down there? I mean, 650s area, do we see some buying there? Or do we drift lower into the 616s, even to the 500s? Be careful, size down. Take a peek over at the SPY. Taking a peek at the SPY. I know this is a lot of lines. These are all hand drawn. Next level is 388. Below that is the 385 area, maybe where we're going. We have to see. And below that is the 383, then 379. If we do see a reversal, would be good to see a back test of the 393 to the 395 area. We see this line around 398.18. That's sort of our line in the sand area, or our trap door. Below, a little bit more bearish, above a little bit more bullish. So we'll see how long it takes us to get back above there. But you saw the last time that we dropped, it's only a few days, then we're back above it. A few more days below, maybe about a week, then we're back above it. So we have to see how long this continues. This should be pretty interesting to see how this plays out. Switch to the 4-hour, and we'll see if the buyers do step in. Overall, just be really careful with your trading and keep it tight. I didn't get into Netflix today. I didn't get into a few other tickers that, like, I know I'm not going to be touching. I'm not recommending anyone else really touch them, but everyone has a different way of trading. But just be careful with, all the different things that you get into. If you like this video, please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to Power of Pivots. If you'd like to receive more videos like this, where you can see me going through some of, watch list, what we're watching for the week, but you can also get information from Elisa as she shares her setups, as she utilizes her Power of Pivot strategy to find great pre-market, intraday, and post-market setups, even swing plays. Thank you so much for your time. Please remain safe with you and your family, and whatever that includes. And we'll see you next week.